Hey everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing my TBR for Peppathon as well as a ton of recommendations. So like in all my videos, I have timestamps down below if you guys want to go to like a specific prompt or something like that, or if you just want to skip my TBR and go to the recommendations, that's fine too. So I will just have the timestamps down below so you guys can skip around in the video wherever you need. And I did have a couple people who gave me specific recommendations that they want, and I will go over those as well during the recommendations. Obviously this is about me because it's my channel, so I'm going to do my TBR first and then the recommendations.
Oh my God, is this who we are? Is this what we represent?
I'm trying to get blackout across the board, and I'm actually doing it with really 3 books. You'll see why. I'm just gonna go in order of like which books fit which prompts instead of like going all over the place. So the first book that I'm gonna be reading is House of Hollow, and this is actually for the Stacks of Strange book club pick for May. And I'm doing this for trope you dislike because I don't like amnesia tropes, and this kind of has amnesia in it. And for a book with horrific elements, this is classified as YA horror, so that's why I'm including it for that prompt. And then for the big/thick book, as well as the prompt that's like read a book like that you've DNF'd, reread a book, or give a book / author a second chance, I am going to be reading If You Give a Pig a Pancake. So this is why it's kind of 4 books, but it's really 3, because obviously this is a children's picture book, but it is bigger obviously than an average book. Okay,
Kim, you're doing amazing.
Push this knee out.
it's a big/thick book. It's big. It has a pig in it, so I was like, I can't not read it. And it's technically like a reread for me because I used to read this all the time when I was a kid. Then for the prompts, historical fiction / backlist, popular book, and for a fast-paced book, I'm going to be reading the group book 5 Little Pigs by Agatha Christie. This has pigs in the title too, so that is good. That's why we picked it. And this is just a classic whodunit mystery that Agatha Christie is known for, and I'm really excited because I've never read an Agatha Christie before. The last 2 prompts are read a book with mixed opinions or has been trashed on. This book does have mixed opinions for at least my friends on Goodreads, and for the book with the savage main character, I decided to go with The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. I've heard really good things about this, but then also kind of mediocre, like 2-star things, so that's why I'm picking it for that. And I'm going to be buddy reading this with Jan from Agathon. And savage main character, I know that this is feminist, so I believe that she stands up for what she believes in, so that's why I'm counting it. If it ends up that she's not savage, we're just going to count it anyways. But I'm really excited for this one because I've been meaning to read it for almost a year now. So this is my TBR plus House of Hollow, which I have as an arc actually. And so it's actually pretty short considering, and I did that on purpose just because I am in school. So I don't know how much time I'll have, and so I'm really reading like 3 actual books, and all of them are fairly short. There's none like super big ones. Moving on to the recommendations, the first one is to read a trope that you dislike, and this is kind of up to interpretation. Whatever trope that you guys dislike, just pick a book from that. Nobody asked for a specific trope, so I didn't put any recommendations for this. Then the next prompt is to read a big/thick book, and so again, you could read literally a children's book if you want, like that's fine. That's what I'm doing. But I do have some big/thick book recommendations for you guys, and somebody did ask for specific thriller recommendations, and I have thrillers throughout all of them. This person probably has read all of these because I am less versed in thrillers than them. Gio, I'm talking about you. But I did my best to include thrillers throughout all of the prompts, so you guys could read a thriller if you wanted. For some other recommendations, I know someone asked for a book with pigs. I literally know, well, I don't know. The only one I could tell you is If You Give a Pig a Pancake. That's literally it, but I'm assuming like Animal Farm might have pigs in it. And then someone asked for LGBTQIA+ rep or BIPOC rep, and I will talk about that if I get to a book that has that representation in it. I think that's the only other one besides thrillers that could be found throughout any of the prompts. The other 2 that I got are more specific, so I will talk about those when we get to those specific prompts. Also, I'm going to be running through these pretty quickly because I have a ton of recs. And for big/thick book, the thriller that I have is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. All of Karen Slaughter's books are kind of big, and this one doesn't seem that big. Some copies are like 600 pages, this one's like 400, but for a thriller, that's kind of big, honestly. Obviously, one of my favorites is From Blood and Ash, and you could totally read this. She's thick. Illuminae, I feel like, is really big, but she's pretty fast-paced, so that's why I'm recommending it, because it's big, but it's not super dense. And then obviously I had to get a Sarah J Maas, so I did Crescent City. This one is really thick, while the other ones, the start to her series, aren't as thick, but you could definitely read like any of the sequels in her series if you've gotten that far, but like the first books aren't that thick, honestly. But the next one is historical fiction or backlist, so I did mostly historical fiction because a lot of books are backlist. I would say anything for me, I would do anything before 2020, but you could literally do before 2021. Technically, backlist is anything before the current year. So you could do before 2021. I would do before 2020, which my book does count for. The majority of the books that I will recommend will be backlist in general. So you just have to look. So the first one that I have is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahira Mafi. This one has POC rep. It takes place right after 9/11 and it is amazing, very hard hitting, but also pretty quick, and I love this book. The next one that I have is obviously The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You could also read Daisy Jones and the Six, but that one was okay for me, so I'm recommending this one instead. This does have LGBTQ and POC rep, but it's not own voices. I don't know if Taylor Jenkins Reid is LGBTQ, but the POC rep is not own voices, but it does have it in it. The next one that I have is Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. This takes place in dual timelines.
Editing Deja here with a correction. It's not dual timelines. It's just following them for years from kids to adults.
The timelines take place when they're children, so that's technically like historical. I just wanted to get this book on the list because I like this book a lot. The next one that I have is Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. This takes place like in like the 1700s in Italy, so it's definitely historical fiction. This has to do with a witch and a prince of hell. It's really good, recommend it. On that note of Carrie Maniscalco, I'm also going to be recommending Stalking Jack the Ripper. I love this entire series. My physical copy of the first book was literally stolen by my aunt, so I'm going to put in a picture, but this takes place in the 1800s. It has to do with the murders of Jack the Ripper. It's a fictionalized version of it, but it's really good and I really like it. Then I have The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This takes place in the 90s and it has to do with this vampire going into this white suburban mom community and their book club. It's really good, really like it. This is horror, so I'd be cautious. If you don't like cockroaches or rats, stay away from this book. I hate cockroaches, so this really freaked me out, which I like though. Some other ones that I don't physically have are The Ballad of Black Tom. This one takes place a while ago, I think in the 20s, and this does have POC rep. It's really good. It's a novella, so it's super short. Then this one is backlist, but it's in the Dream House. This one is POC and LGBTQ rep. It's a really, really short memoir, so that's why I wanted to recommend it. This one I just recently read, and is We Ride Upon Sticks, which is like a 80s witchcraft field hockey book. It's really weird, but it's good. It takes place in the 80s, which I love, and it does have POC and LGBTQ characters in it. They're not like the main characters. There's not one main character. It's a whole team of like 11 people, so it does have that in it though. So the next one is books with mixed reviews or that get trashed on. For this, I'm mostly going to go with books that I know have mixed reviews or books that I personally don't like that are really popular, so you could say like I trashed on it. I'm not trashing on any book. There's only one book that I really trash on and dislike, but the rest of them I don't like. I just don't like them, but you can count it for this. So anything Sarah J Maas will obviously have mixed reviews. A lot of people love her, a lot of people don't think that she's worth the hype, so I would say anything Sarah J Maas. Thrillers in general are really good for this, but this one's kind of like a thriller horror mystery. Mexican Gothic, a lot of people I know really like this. I gave it like 3 stars. I wasn't a big fan, and I didn't like the end, okay? And so I know a lot of people also don't like this, but a lot of people love it. So for this next one, some other people I know didn't like it as much, but this is kind of one that I've known for not liking, and that is Get a Like Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I gave this 3 stars. Really, it only got that high of a rating because of the POC rep in this. I forgot to mention that Mexican Gothic also has POC rep. On the topic of Talia Hibbert, The Princess Trap is one of hers that I really dislike. I've read 3 of her books, and The Princess Trap is my least favorite. Also has POC rep. I honestly wouldn't recommend it, but this is one book I actually really don't like at all, so you could pick it up for that reason. The next one that I have is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, which again has POC rep. I feel like thrillers are so subjective. I didn't like the end. I know a lot of people that really love this and a lot of people who really didn't like it. I'm definitely on the end of more I didn't like it, but I think this would be good for some people and would hit right for them. Another popular thriller that I don't like is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, so I really don't like this book for a thriller. I really didn't like it, so I guess I'm trashing on it, and a lot of people really like this. I don't, so you may like it, but I didn't, so I'm trashing on it. This one I really, really love, but it has mixed reviews for my friends on Goodreads, and that is You by Carolyn Kepnes. I love this book, but it has a lot of mixed reviews on Goodreads. The next one is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. I like this book, but a lot of people didn't like it. They felt like it was juvenile, but who doesn't like a good witchy, enemies to lovers, forbidden romance? I'm just saying. The next one that I have is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. A lot of people like this, a lot of people don't like it. I liked it when I read it. Now, if I read it, I probably wouldn't like it as much because of Fade to Black, because she's not cute. That's why a lot of people didn't like this, but I read this when I was more inexperienced in romance, so the Fade to Black didn't bother me. I feel like anything Riley Sager can be a little bit controversial. I didn't really like Lock Every Door. I wouldn't hate on it, but I guess I give it like a mixed opinion. And I know a lot of people didn't necessarily like Home Before Dark. I have not read its first 2 books, but I feel like those are actually more mixed and hated on than these 2, so maybe one of those would be good for you. Another one is American Royals. I really love this. I know a lot of people love this, but like even Molly from Mind of Molly, they didn't like this, so it does have some mixed opinions. Accidentally Engaged is POC rep, and I really like this. I know a lot of people like Jess from Peace Love Books. She didn't like this romance, but I really enjoyed it. It was a little weird, like some things in here weren't my favorite. It was Fade to Black, didn't like that, but for a Fade to Black romance, this is one of my favorites, and I liked a lot of the other aspects of the book. And the last one is The Echo Wife, which has LGBTQ rep because the author is non-binary, and I love this. It's like a sci-fi cloning book, and a lot of people in our book club loved it because I actually read this last month for Stacks of Strange. A lot of people loved it, but then a lot of people really didn't like it, so it definitely was mixed in that regard. Next is Popular Book, and I feel like this one's up to interpretation. I feel like a lot of the books I talk about are popular, so I'm not going to do like a whole list. So the next prompt is to read a book that has a savage main character, and someone asked for a book with a savage main character that's under 300 pages. So that was really hard, but I did figure out some. Most of them I do not own though. The first one is Your Dad Will Do by Katie Roberts. This is a steamy novella, and I feel like the main character is savage because she gets cheated on by her boyfriend, so she's like, you know what, I'm gonna go hook up with your dad. Period, queen, like, okay. So I feel like honestly that's definitely like a savage move in my opinion. The next one again is The Echo Wife, which is LGBTQ rep, and I'm picking this one because the main character, she is very like unlikable to a lot of people in when we were discussing it, because she just kind of like is all about herself, wants to get her stuff done, and doesn't really like want to take on other people's stuff. That's why she didn't want to have kids. So I feel like that's definitely savage to me. Then I definitely feel like Saga. Saga is a graphic novel series. I have a random assortment of volumes. I have 3, 6, and 7 for some reason, but the main characters in this are definitely savage. I love the female main character. She is so savage. Would really recommend this if you're looking for something short. The next one is a thriller, and that is The Butterfly Garden. This one is under 300 pages, and the main character doesn't really want to like give in to the cops when she's telling them about what happened, and she kind of plays with them. So I feel like that's definitely kind of like a savage move. The next one is a romance, and that is Dirty Kisses by Kenya Wright, which is POC rep, and the main character, she does not take no ish, and it's a mafia romance. She really kind of stands up for herself, and even like the male main character, he doesn't take ish either. He's definitely like really savage, like the leader of a mafia. So I feel like that's pretty savage in my opinion. Then this next one is 308 pages, but also has POC rep, and that is Intercepted by Alexa Martin. And this one is a football romance, and the main character, she like is kind of like wrapped up in like this NFL world, and a lot of the other NFL wives she does not like, and so she kind of messes with them, like doesn't take any ish from them, and so I feel like she's definitely savage in that way, and she definitely speaks her mind a lot. The other ones I'm going to run through quickly. Illuminate, I feel like, has savage main characters that really try and get stuff done. Then I have Kingdom of the Wicked, and the main character in this, she really is like, I'm capturing this Prince of Hell, and he's helping me with what I need help with, okay? And I feel like that's pretty savage. Then, obviously, one of my favorite books, Pip from A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, is extremely savage. She is going after what she wants, even though people told her no, and she's digging into people's lives. She's like, give me the tea. What's going on, okay? So she's really prying for information because she wants to prove what she knows is right. Then I have With the Fire on High, which has POC rep in it. I would recommend anything, honestly, by Elizabeth Acevedo. This one's just my favorite. You know, the main character is really going after her dreams and what she wants, even though society's against her, so I feel like that's savage. The amount of times I said savage is, like, super annoying to me. Next, I have An Ember in the Ashes by Salvatierre. Almost hit myself in the face. Laya is very savage to me. She is going after what she wants to save her family, okay, period. and this has POC rep in it as well. Then I'm going to go with Throne of Glass because Selena is an assassin, which I feel like is like a savage thing in general. Most Sarah J Maas, I would say, have savage main characters in them. So even like Carson City, I would really recommend for this as well. Feyre is not as savage to me, but you could count them. This one's kind of debatable, but I think Poppy from Blood and Ash is pretty savage, especially once you get to like the second book. So I would count that for this as well. I would also say No Exit for this. I don't have the physical book, but I have this. My mom has the actual hardcover, but No Exit, the main character, she is trying to save this little girl and she's fighting for her life, and I feel like that's pretty savage. Like, that's really honorable. Then I have a short apocalyptic horror, and that is Stuff for the Children, which, so basically in this, all the children in the world die at once, and then they all come back to life at once, and then they start asking for blood, and if they don't get blood, they kind of turn into like zombies. So a lot of like the parents in this that we are following are savage because they're like, they will do anything for their kids, and they went to extreme lengths to get blood for their kids. And the last one that I have is The Chase by Elle Kennedy. The main character in this, I feel like, is very much denies social standards. It has a lot of tropes. It's like a new adult college hockey romance, and the main character, she just defies societal standards, and she literally fights other girls who really just like are terrible people. Like, she fights people on the spot, okay? And I feel like that is pretty cool, right? The next prompt is fast-paced, and someone asked for fast-paced fantasies, and that's like not my strong suit. I would not go to me for those recommendations because I don't even read that much fantasy anymore, and the ones I read I would not say are fast-paced because they're usually quite chunky, and I'm not saying chunky can't be fast-paced, but for the majority of people they might not be. So I have a couple recommendations, but not too many, but those are more at like the end. So the first one that I have is Flow by Kennedy Ryan. It is a really short novella that you need to read before you continue on in the series. So this is actually like 0.5 or whatever. It's not the first book, but you need to read this before reading the first book, but it's super good and it has POC rep. Then again, I have The Butterfly Garden, which is a thriller. Most thrillers I feel like are pretty fast-paced usually. Then obviously I have Saga again. Saga is really fast-paced because it's a graphic novel. I feel like any graphic novel would be fast-paced. And this is technically fantasy, so here you go. Then I have Illuminae, which is big, but I feel like because of the format, it goes by really quickly. And I don't know why, but for me, A Curse so Dark and Lonely was really fast-paced for me, and this is a fantasy. It is a little bit big, like 400-ish pages, but it went by pretty quick for me. Next, I have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, which, because it's mixed media, goes by really quickly, and this is a thriller. I literally read this book in one night. It was so good. Then I have Jackpot by Nick Stone. This book is really short. All of Nick Stone's are really short, like Dear Martin's also really short, but this one is my favorite, and this has POC rep in it as well. Then I have City by Courtney Summers. This is a thriller, so I feel like it goes by really quickly. And this is a little bit mixed media, so that helps. Then I have Desperate Measures by Katie Roberts, which is a really steamy romance retelling series. This one I'd be cautious of. This does have some like consensual non-consent and things like that in it, so I'd be careful, but it is discussed really well. So the next one that I have is a thriller called Confessions, and this is super short. It's translated. It really, you couldn't tell, but it is POC because the author is Asian. And then next I have Voyeur by Fiona Cole. This is a romance that has to do with like a strip club and a professor, and it's really good. It's not one of my absolute favorites, but I literally read it in like 2 days and it got me out of a slump. Then next I have Cemetery Boys. This has POC rep and LGBTQ rep in it, and it is fantasy, and it just went by so quickly. I really enjoyed this one. Other Words for Home is a POC middle grade and has to do with a Muslim girl coming to America, and it's super short because it's middle grade, so I really like this. I feel like most middle grades would count for this. Then I have Follow Me to Ground, which is like a super weird fantasy, so I recommend this one for the fast-paced fantasy, and it's like less than 300 pages, between 200 and 300, and it's super good. I really liked it. It's really weird, but it's grown on me over time, and the farther I get away from reading it, the more that I enjoy it. Then I have The Henna Wars, which is a contemporary that has POC and LGBTQ rep in it, and it's so cute. This is like one of my favorite of like this type of like coming of age stories that are hard-hitting but YA contemporary still. This is like probably my favorite. For another fast-paced like fantasy kind of apocalyptic book, I have Angel Fall. This is more like fantasy because it has angels in it. This is POC because the author is Asian, and it's super short. It's not even 300 pages, so it's really good for a short fantasy. Then the last one that I have is Kingdom of the Wicked, which is also a fantasy technically. I've recommended this a lot, but it fits a lot of different prompts, and this one is just, it's really fast paced. I read it super quick because it's just really engaging. The next prompt is the one that's like, give an author a book second chance, read a book that you've DNF'd, or reread a book. So that's up to you. That's like a really personal one, so whatever book you want to read for that. And the last prompt I have is horror, or a book with horrific elements in it. And someone asked for horror that isn't too scary, and I feel like for this one I specifically put horror or a book with horrific elements because I feel like you could even read like The Hate You Give, because it's kind of horrific, you know, police brutality is horrific. So that's why I put that in here, so you could read books that have more like hard-hitting topics in it as well, because I feel like anything with like Black Lives Matter, police brutality to me is horrific. So like anything like that would really like work for this, but I'm going to be going into more like horror and thrillers that aren't super scary. So the first one I have is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This one is YA, so it's definitely not scary. I feel like most YA horror and thrillers aren't super scary, so this one could work. Truly Devious could work, and Sadie could work. Any of those I feel like would be good for this, like any YA thrillers. Next I have The Night Swim by Megan Golden, and the reason I chose this one specifically was because this has to do with a rape trial. It's not scary, but it does talk a little bit about like the rape itself, so that might be triggering for some people, but I feel like that's like horrific. Like it's not scary, but it's like a horrific thing that happened. Then I feel like Rory Powers is one of the only YA horror authors I've read, but I really like her work. Both of these I would recommend. I would say that Burn Our Bodies Down is less scary than Wilder Girls. This one has a little bit more like body horror and gore in it, so if you don't like that, I wouldn't recommend this one. And I feel like this one is less scary, but these are both technically horror, so they would work for this. Then I have The Year of the Witching, and this one is not scary at all. I don't think it's horror fantasy, so there are like creatures in this, but like the part that scared me was the organized religion aspect of this, but that's like a personal thing, and I think that like organized religion is so extreme and controlling. It is horrific. It's like a cult. It's based off the Puritans, so it is really controlling and horrific. Another one is Ninth House. Ninth House has a lot of horrific elements in it, but it's not horror. It just has like a lot of gross things in it. A lot of gross things. So that one I would count for this as well. Stuff for the Children, which I mentioned before, is also technically horror. I wouldn't call it scary, but again, if you don't really like pandemic type apocalyptic things, it's not super like apocalyptic or pandemic, because I don't really like those types of books, but it does have that in it. And obviously like children asking for blood is kind of horrific in itself. I forgot to mention that The Year of the Witching has POC rep in it, and the next one does as well, and that is Into the Drowning Deep, which I feel like is a little bit scarier, but it's like one of my favorite horrors that I've read. And if you're scared of the ocean, don't read this if you don't want to be scared. Like if you are one of those types of people that like to be scared like me, you read it because it's so good. But this does have LGBTQ rep in it as well. Then Confessions again is kind of horrific of like what goes down in it, but it's not scary whatsoever, and it's really short again, and it is POC and translated. Then I have Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is the only Tiffany D. Jackson I've read, and it's one of her probably more underrated ones. This is obviously POC rep, and some of the things in it that happen are really horrific, but it's not scary again. And then Follow Me to Ground has some like horrific things in it, and it is kind of like a fantasy horror, but it's not scary whatsoever, so I would recommend this one as well. Okay, that was a lot of recommendations. Hopefully I can edit this a lot and it's not like super trash. I hope this helped you guys in some way, because it really took me a long time to curate this list, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm really excited to see all your TBRs for Peppathon, and just for Peppathon to get closer and eventually start, because I think it's going to be so much fun and amazing. But that is all that I have for this video today, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye everybody.
Trying to look like you winning. I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking in moments we live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, faking your life for the IG. If you got my number, don't add me, cause baby, I'm on hiatus. I'm on hiatus.